Now to an incredible find overseas, an elaborate series of stone monuments believed to have been hidden for thousands of years, not far from the famous site of Stonehenge.
Now, a new analysis shows that the 6-ton iconic altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge originated from northeastern Scotland.
5,000 years ago, on a lonely stretch of open land in southern England, people began building something that should never have existed. They had no iron, no steel, no machinery, no written blueprints, and according to everything we think we know about the Neolithic world, no technology capable of moving stones that weighed more than fully loaded trucks. Yet somehow, generation after generation, they transformed a quiet landscape into one of the greatest engineering mysteries in human history. Stonehenge has stood through the rise and fall of every empire. It watched Egypt build pyramids. It existed long before Rome was founded. It survived kings, wars, plagues, industrial revolutions, and world wars. Thousands of archaeologists have measured it. Engineers have modeled it. Historians have debated it. Every generation believed it was finally close to understanding why it was built. But then artificial intelligence looked at the monument differently. Instead of asking the same questions humans had asked for centuries, researchers fed an AI an enormous collection of archaeological surveys, laser scans, geological reports, astronomical calculations, excavation records, and thousands of pages of measurements gathered over generations. The AI wasn't told what to believe. It wasn't asked to prove an existing theory. It simply searched for patterns hidden inside an ocean of information that no single human could ever fully process. And what it highlighted wasn't just surprising. It suggested that Stonehenge might be far more sophisticated than anyone imagined. Not because it proved aliens built it. Not because it uncovered supernatural powers, but because it exposed a level of planning and precision that forces us to rethink the people who created it. For centuries, we've pictured Neolithic Britain as a land of scattered farming communities struggling to survive with primitive tools. Simple villages, wooden houses, stone axes, people concerned mainly with food and shelter. Then there's Stonehenge. It doesn't fit. Even standing beside it today feels strange. The monument rises from otherwise gentle countryside like something placed there from another world. Massive sandstone pillars tower overhead while enormous horizontal lintels rest across their tops with astonishing balance. The stones don't simply lean against each other. They're connected using carefully carved joints that resemble techniques still used by modern carpenters. Mortise and tenon joints. Tongue and groove connections. These aren't accidental. Every stone appears intentionally shaped to lock into another. That alone raises uncomfortable questions. Cutting those precise joints into hardwood requires skill. Carving them into solid rock with stone tools sounds almost impossible. Yet somehow it happened. And that's only the beginning. Some of the monument's largest stones weigh around 25 tons. Imagine trying to move something heavier than a city bus. Now imagine doing it without cranes, without engines, without steel cables, without wheels capable of carrying that weight across rough terrain. Some of these stones traveled more than 20 miles. Others came from Wales, over 140 miles away. Even today, transporting stones of that size would require extensive planning, specialized vehicles, permits, engineering studies, and heavy machinery. 5,000 years ago, someone accomplished the impossible using methods we still can't fully reconstruct. The usual explanation sounds reasonable at first. Wooden sledges, rolling logs, ropes, hundreds of workers pulling together, years of patient labor, maybe even generations. It's certainly possible. But possibility doesn't automatically explain reality. Modern experiments have shown that moving enormous stones this way is extraordinarily difficult even when researchers already know exactly where the stones need to go. The builders of Stonehenge weren't copying an existing monument. They were creating something completely original. Every mistake would have been costly. Every misplaced stone could have delayed construction for months. Yet the final monument demonstrates remarkable accuracy, which leads to a simple but unsettling question. How did people without written engineering manuals coordinate a project that lasted centuries? Because Stonehenge wasn't built in one burst of activity. It evolved. Construction stretched across many generations. Different phases added earthworks, circles, standing stones, rearrangements, and new architectural features. Think about that for a moment. Imagine beginning a project your grandchildren would never see completed. Imagine expecting people centuries in the future to continue following your vision without written instructions. That level of continuity is astonishing. Entire civilizations have struggled to preserve knowledge for even a few generations. Yet Stonehenge suggests that its builders maintained a shared objective across lifetimes. The AI noticed something humans often overlook. People usually focus on the stones. The machine didn't. Instead, it became fascinated by something much less impressive. Holes. Before the great stones ever arrived, builders had dug dozens of circular pits surrounding the site. For years, archaeologists considered them little more than construction features or burial locations. Interesting, certainly, but secondary. The AI treated them differently. Rather than viewing each hole individually, it analyzed every measurement simultaneously. Distance, spacing, angles, relationships, patterns invisible to the human eye slowly emerged. What looked random wasn't random at all. The holes followed mathematical relationships with astonishing consistency. At first, researchers assumed this was coincidence. Ancient builders couldn't possibly have been encoding advanced astronomical observations into simple pits in the ground. Or could they? The more the calculations were checked, the stranger things became. The arrangement appeared connected to the movements of the moon. Not just ordinary moon phases that anyone could observe. Much longer cycles. Patterns taking nearly 2 decades to repeat completely. Tracking such cycles isn't easy. You can't watch them over a single season. Or even over a few years. You need patience. You need careful observation. You need records extending across decades. That realization changes everything. If these people truly designed parts of Stonehenge around long-term lunar movements, then someone had been observing the sky continuously for an incredibly long time before construction even began. Astronomy wasn't a hobby. It was a tradition. Knowledge passed from one generation to another with remarkable accuracy. Think about what that requires. A child learns from an elder. Years later, that child becomes the elder. Then teaches another child. Again. And again. Decade after decade. Century after century. Without writing. Without textbooks. Without computers. Just memory. The longer researchers examined this possibility, the harder it became to dismiss. Ancient people understood the sky far better than we'd given them credit for. But astronomy alone doesn't explain Stonehenge. Then came another surprise. Researchers have always known Stonehenge aligns with the sunrise during the summer solstice. Thousands still gather every June to watch sunlight shine directly through the monument exactly as it has for thousands of years. It's breathtaking. But many assumed that alignment was simply symbolic. The AI suggested otherwise. After comparing every known measurement with astronomical simulations, additional alignments began appearing. Not one. Several. Some corresponded with lunar events. Others matched seasonal transitions. Still others appeared connected to celestial cycles that unfold so slowly a single observer could never witness them completely. Imagine designing a machine intended to track events you personally would never live long enough to verify. Who builds something like that? Someone thinking beyond individual lifetimes. Someone building for descendants. Or perhaps someone preserving knowledge they feared might disappear. That possibility becomes even more intriguing when examining the monument's location. Stonehenge isn't isolated. It's surrounded by burial mounds, ceremonial avenues, ancient earthworks, and dozens of archaeological sites spread across miles of countryside. Viewed individually, each seems unrelated. Viewed together, patterns emerge. The AI overlaid thousands of geographic measurements. Straight lines connected distant monuments. Geometric relationships repeated across the landscape. Certain locations seemed intentionally positioned relative to others. Suddenly, Stonehenge no longer looked like a lone monument. It looked like the center of an enormous network. A carefully planned landscape. Not random construction. Deliberate design. Modern people often assume ancient builders simply adapted to the land around them. What if the opposite happened? What if they reshaped the landscape according to a master plan? Creating such a network would demand extraordinary surveying abilities. Not impossible, but astonishing. Even today, accurate surveying requires specialized instruments. Ancient builders had none. Yet distances remained remarkably consistent. Angles appeared intentional. Relationships persisted across miles. How did they maintain such precision? That's where researchers encountered perhaps the biggest mystery of all. When they arranged every construction phase chronologically, something unexpected appeared. The earliest work often showed the greatest precision. Later additions sometimes displayed subtle declines in accuracy. That's backwards. Human civilizations usually improve over time. Skills accumulate. Knowledge expands. Mistakes become lessons. Stonehenge hints at the opposite. It suggests the first builders possessed knowledge later generations struggled to maintain. Imagine inheriting instructions whose purpose you no longer fully understand. You know where each stone belongs, but not why. Over generations, tiny errors begin accumulating. Nothing dramatic, just enough to reveal fading understanding. It's like copying the same drawing over and over. Each version resembles the original, but small imperfections slowly appear. Eventually, the picture remains recognizable while losing details only the first artist truly understood. Could something similar have happened at Stonehenge? The AI couldn't answer that, but it identified patterns consistent with gradual knowledge loss rather than gradual technological improvement. That idea is deeply unsettling, because it challenges one of our favorite assumptions about history. We like believing every generation becomes smarter than the last. Stonehenge quietly asks whether some ancient knowledge was forgotten instead. And if that's true, what exactly was lost? The answer may not lie within the stones themselves. It may lie beneath them. Because as researchers continued combining excavation records with new imaging technology, another hidden layer of the monument began revealing itself. And what they discovered beneath the famous stones would completely transform the mystery surrounding one of humanity's oldest monuments. Because beneath Stonehenge lies evidence that the monument was never intended to stand alone. Long before its towering stones dominated the landscape, the ground itself had already become part of an enormous plan. Modern ground-penetrating radar, aerial LiDAR surveys, and decades of archaeological excavations have revealed that what visitors see today represents only a fraction of the original ceremonial complex. Hidden beneath the fields are ancient ditches, forgotten timber circles, burial mounds, processional pathways, and structures that disappeared thousands of years ago. Imagine looking at a modern city after every building had vanished except one cathedral. That's what Stonehenge may actually be. Not an isolated monument, but the last survivor of a much larger world. When researchers combined every available map with AI-powered pattern recognition, connections began appearing that no one had previously noticed. Ancient roads aligned with distant monuments. Burial sites appeared positioned according to consistent geometric rules. Natural hills became part of carefully organized sightlines. Instead of random settlements growing independently, the entire landscape looked coordinated, almost choreographed. If true, someone wasn't merely building Stonehenge. Someone was designing an entire sacred landscape stretching for miles. That idea alone changes the conversation. Because organizing projects across such enormous distances requires more than manpower. It requires planning, communication, leadership, knowledge passed accurately from one community to another. It implies a society capable of coordinating thousands of people toward a common objective over centuries. Far from primitive, far from disorganized, and perhaps far more sophisticated than we've imagined. Then came another fascinating observation. The different types of stone used at Stonehenge weren't chosen randomly. The larger sandstone blocks came from one region. The smaller bluestones originated in another. Why transport different rocks from completely different locations unless each served a specific purpose? Researchers have debated this question for decades. Some believed certain stones possessed spiritual significance. Others argued they symbolized alliances between distant communities. The AI explored another possibility. Material properties. Every kind of rock behaves differently. Some absorb sound. Others reflect it. Some vibrate more easily under certain frequencies. Engineers already understand these principles when designing concert halls. Different building materials dramatically change how sound travels through enclosed spaces. Could Stonehenge's builders have known something similar? It sounds unbelievable until you remember one important fact. Ancient people lived surrounded by nature. They noticed details modern society often ignores. Echoes inside caves. The ringing of struck stones. The different sounds produced by different materials. They didn't need physics textbooks to recognize patterns. Centuries of careful observation could teach remarkable lessons. Some researchers have even demonstrated that certain bluestones produce clear musical tones when gently struck. They actually ring, almost like giant stone bells. Imagine discovering such rocks naturally. Would you ignore them? Or would you believe they possessed special properties worthy of transporting across mountains and rivers? Now picture placing dozens of those resonant stones inside an already carefully designed circle. Would they simply decorate the monument? Or become part of it? The AI couldn't prove intentional acoustic engineering, but it found enough relationships between stone placement and sound behavior to justify asking entirely new questions. Questions no one had seriously considered before. Perhaps Stonehenge wasn't silent. Perhaps ceremonies there were unforgettable experiences. Drums echoing through the stone circle. Voices rising into the open sky. Resonance building between carefully positioned stones. Not supernatural. Not magical. Simply architecture interacting with sound in ways ancient builders may have understood through experience rather than mathematics. If so, standing inside Stonehenge during an important ceremony might have felt unlike anything else on Earth. That alone would explain why generations considered it sacred. But perhaps the most mysterious discovery involved time itself. Not time measured in hours or seasons, but centuries. Researchers noticed that many astronomical alignments associated with Stonehenge involve cycles lasting longer than a human lifetime. Think about that carefully. Some celestial movements unfold so slowly that one observer could never witness an entire cycle from beginning to end. To understand them requires observations continued across generations. That means grandparents teaching parents, parents teaching children, children becoming elders, knowledge surviving intact despite the passing of centuries. This wasn't casual sky watching. It was institutional memory. One of humanity's greatest achievements has always been preserving information beyond individual lives. Today we use books, hard drives, cloud storage. Ancient societies had only people, which makes Stonehenge remarkable. It may represent memory carved into stone, knowledge transformed into architecture. Instead of writing observations on paper that would decay, perhaps they embedded them permanently into the landscape itself. Every alignment, every stone, every angle, a lesson impossible to burn or erase. Even if everyone who built it disappeared, the monument would continue waiting for someone capable of reading it. In many ways, that's exactly what's happening today. Artificial intelligence isn't uncovering hidden chambers filled with ancient secrets. It's doing something arguably more powerful. It's connecting information humans collected over centuries. Imagine thousands of puzzle pieces scattered across hundreds of museums, libraries, universities, and excavation reports. No single archaeologist could study them all simultaneously. The AI could. It compared measurements separated by decades. It linked geological data with astronomical models. It noticed relationships too subtle for human intuition alone. That's not replacing archaeology. It's amplifying it, helping researchers ask better questions. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. For years people treated artificial intelligence as something that would only transform the future. Instead, it may become one of our greatest tools for understanding the distant past. Not because machines know history better than humans, but because they excel at finding patterns hidden inside overwhelming amounts of information. Stonehenge reminds us that history is rarely finished. Every generation believes it finally understands the past. Then new evidence appears. A new technology arrives. An old mystery changes shape. What seems impossible today may become obvious tomorrow. That's happened repeatedly throughout archaeology. Ancient Troy was once considered mythical, until it was found. Machu Picchu remained hidden from the outside world for centuries. Göbekli Tepe completely transformed our understanding of early civilization. Each discovery forced historians to rewrite familiar stories. Stonehenge may be preparing to do the same. Not because it overturns everything we know, but because it reveals how much we still don't know. There's another reason this monument continues captivating millions of people every year. It isn't simply the stones. It's what they represent. Every civilization leaves behind monuments. Most celebrate rulers, victories, power. Stonehenge feels different. No king's name appears there. No conquest is recorded. No army claimed credit. Its builders remain anonymous. Their language vanished. Their beliefs faded. Their homes disappeared. Yet the monument survived, almost as if they expected everything else to be forgotten. Perhaps they knew civilizations rise and fall. Perhaps they understood that stories change. But stone endures. 5,000 years later, people from every corner of the world still travel to stand where unknown builders once stood, still asking the same questions. Who were they? Why did they build this? How did they accomplish something so extraordinary? Artificial intelligence hasn't solved those mysteries. Not even close. In many ways, it has made them even deeper. Because every new connection uncovered raises several new questions. If Stonehenge truly formed part of a larger ceremonial network, who planned it? If its astronomical precision exceeds previous estimates, how was that knowledge acquired? If generations preserved construction plans across centuries, how did they maintain such accuracy without writing? If different stones were selected for specific physical properties, what else did their builders understand that has since been forgotten? Science thrives on questions, not certainty. That's what makes this story so exciting. The goal isn't to replace evidence with speculation. The goal is to keep investigating. Every laser scan, every excavation, every fragment of pottery, every buried post hole, every newly discovered alignment adds another piece to a puzzle still far from complete. Perhaps one day archaeologists will uncover an ancient settlement explaining everything. Perhaps new dating techniques will reveal entirely different construction phases. Perhaps future AI systems will recognize patterns today's technology still misses. Or perhaps Stonehenge will continue guarding some of its secrets forever. There's something strangely fitting about that. After all, the greatest mysteries aren't valuable because they have easy answers. They're valuable because they inspire generations to keep searching. For over 5,000 years, Stonehenge has challenged every civilization that encountered it. The Romans wondered. Medieval scholars wondered. Victorian archaeologists wondered. Modern scientists wonder. And now, artificial intelligence has joined that endless conversation. Not with final answers, but with a reminder. Sometimes history isn't waiting for us to discover something entirely new. Sometimes it's waiting for us to see old evidence in an entirely new way. And perhaps that's the most extraordinary finding of all. Stonehenge hasn't changed. The stones remain exactly where they've stood for millennia. What has changed is the way we look at them. And if a single ancient monument can still surprise humanity after 5,000 years of study, imagine how many other forgotten places around the world are quietly waiting for the next breakthrough to reveal their hidden story. Because the greatest discoveries may not lie beneath the ground. They may already be sitting in plain sight, waiting for us to finally ask the right questions.